Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Jody Anderson Duquette, and I'm with Workamper News. And today I'm going to tell you about how you can afford the RV lifestyle now by work camping. I'd like to thank the Forest River Owners Group and Techno RV for having us here today to tell you all about this wonderful option to help make RVing a little easier on the budget. And who am I? I am one of the owners of Workamper News. It's owned by my family, who you can see here. My parents purchased the business from the original creators back in 2005, and we've been operating the business since then. Workamper News began operations back in 1987, and we're the ones who coined the term work camper, which we'll talk a little bit more in a minute. So I've been helping work campers and the businesses that hire them now for about 14 years. That's my parents and my husband there in the picture. He's on the team as well. So we've really enjoyed our time getting to know all the RVers out there, and we also became RVers ourselves. We had a 40-foot Cedar Creek for many years and enjoyed living in that fifth wheel. It was beautiful and wonderful. And but now we have a Class C, and unfortunately we don't get to participate in the frog rallies anymore, but we still really love the RV life, and we're just part-time now. But we really enjoyed spending time out on the road and getting to see all the beautiful places. And because Workamper News, the work that I do here allows me to be anywhere. I'm a work camper myself. I go out and work while we're traveling in the RV. So I am a work camper too, and have been enjoying working with work campers for a long time now. And as I mentioned, Workamper News, we're the original resource for work camping. And we have a website, workamper.com. That's our main place. And of course, you can find us on social media as well. Many of you have perhaps come across an issue of our magazine at some point in communicating with other RVers. That's kind of how we started. And one thing that we're known for is our bi-monthly publication. We do, in fact, still print and mail that thing to our many RVers around the country. But workamper.com is our internet home where our online tools are and all of our resources and things like that. So I hope you guys will check that out if you're interested. So what is a work camper? And to simply define it, it is someone who works part-time or full-time while living in an RV. That's it. It's not any specific job type or specific job duties or specific compensation or anything. If you're working while living in an RV, you're a work camper. And most typically, you are going to hear about work camping in campground RV park settings. That is probably the most common type of business that hires work campers. Now, as a work camper, you can be any age. You don't have to be of a certain age. We have families that are out there RVing with teenage kids working, and we also have folks who are in their 70s and 80s, some of them just starting out in their work camping adventures. So it really is for everybody. You can be a solo, you can RV and work camp as a couple, as a family. Maybe you're two family members traveling together, like two sisters or maybe two friends. Doesn't matter. It also doesn't matter what kind of RV you have. Now, most employers will anticipate that you will be coming in a hard-sided unit, something that you can, do the basics of life in. You can shower, feed yourself, sleep, and be protected from like weather and the outside elements. But whether you have a motorhome or a towable, you're good to go. So that doesn't matter. You can also be a part-time or full-time RVer. There's opportunities for you, many of them shorter term, some longer term. So depending upon what your RVing style is, you can find opportunities that match how you want to RV. So that's pretty cool. And you don't have to have any specific prior experience. A lot of these opportunities could be considered entry level, type positions where as long as you're flexible, willing to learn new things, they're going to have an opportunity. You're going to be able to do the job that the employer is looking for you to do. So don't be intimidated by perhaps never having done this type of work before. Just utilize the resources that Workamper News has available to create a really great resume, communicate well with the employer, and you're going to go a long way. Okay. All right. So let's talk about what types of jobs are out there, because as I said, Many of you maybe just think of work camping as camp hosting, but there really is a lot of different things you can do. And the compensation is also going to vary. So, it depends on your budget and what your financial needs are as to what kind of jobs you might consider. Some positions you will work in trade for an RV site and maybe some other perks. Some jobs you'll work so many hours a week in trade for the RV site, then perhaps additional hours will be paid a wage. Some positions will offer wages paid for all hours worked, and you get an RV site and some other perks. And there are even a few opportunities out there that do have some salary or career-like benefits, but there's going to be less of that. All right, so let's get in. I kind of have organized these kind of in some categories. So I'll go through and give you guys an idea of some of the fun stuff to do out there. So campgrounds, RV resorts, RV parks, those are the entities that you're going to see most frequently looking for work campers. And so those will be commercial entities, maybe the bigger franchises, KOAs, Jellystones, Thousand Trails, things like that, down to, the mom and pop where it's maybe a family or a couple running the operation. There's also state parks, county parks, U.S. Army Corps of Engineer day use areas, Forest Service campgrounds and day use areas, places like that as well look for work campers. And in those types of operations, those are often more volunteer positions where you're just going to work in trade for an RV site. There's likely not going to be any wages. And so those types of entities especially need work campers to stay open in having that ability to just trade work for an RV site, because they may not have the budget to pay all the staff that they need to operate the facility. So these operations really rely and appreciate the work campers as they need them to survive. All right. Oh, and let me talk. I forgot. I was going to kind of go over a little bit what some of the duties might be. So let me do that. Sorry, I almost forgot. All right. So in one of these types of operations, campgrounds, RV parks, etc., many of you guys have stayed in them already, so you probably have a general idea. But it's really going to depend on the park too. So you might be doing things like working in the office. So taking phone calls, doing reservations, possibly working on a computer using reservation software, things like that. You might be maintaining a little store, doing financial transactions. You may also be an activities director if it's a bigger campground and they maybe have stuff going on. A lot of like the 55 plus parks will have a lot of activities and stuff going on, especially during the winter months. So you might be arranging activities, whether that be for kids, adults, mix of both, etc. You're figuring out what's going on the schedule and making sure those activities happen. There's also, you see maintenance positions advertised pretty frequently, and that's really going to vary. So maintenance, one place might just be making sure a campsite is cleaned up, maybe picking up some garbage, things like that, all the way up to perhaps you're helping, build some of the facilities or doing some electrical work, things like that. And it could just involve, cleaning, painting, maybe a little bit of landscaping, although oftentimes they'll advertise, landscaping is kind of separate, but it could include, mowing, weeding, maintaining flower beds, things like that as well. So maintenance, really, you want to make sure to clarify with the employer what all that is going to entail so physically if that's going to work out for you or not. Other camp hosts, you'll see that advertised. That may be, when you arrive to an RV park and you're escorted to an RV site, that can fall under camp host duties. Cleaning can also fall under that, like cleaning of the bathrooms, shower houses, maybe if there's a clubhouse. Places that have extra rental places like cabins or a lodge or something like that. Typically, those places will hire specifically housekeeping. So you'll see that advertised as well. And so that is going to be more specifically cleaning those types of facilities. So those are a few of the typical types of positions or duties that you'll find at these places. When we get into, the state parks, Army Corps of Engineers, things like that, the duties there may be a little more of being in a visitor center type situation, and you're more so just dispensing information and making sure people are following rules. Surveying trails, surveying the area, making sure everything's ship shape, and if there are issues, then often that's then reported to a ranger. You're not necessarily taking care of it. So with those volunteer opportunities, sometimes the duties become a little bit lighter. All right, the next category up is entertainment. And so to me, this includes opportunities that are at amusement parks. That's one of them. There are multiple amusement parks around the country that recruit work campers. Many of these amusement parks have a campground that's like either on the same property or really close by to the amusement park. And then the work campers stay right there at the campground. Sometimes you can even walk to work. And so at amusement parks, you'll get to do things like operating rides, operating games, perhaps doing some cleaning, janitorial around the park, working in food operations, perhaps at gate operations where people are coming in, buying their tickets, things like that, assisting with parking, all kinds of fun stuff. And so if you are a person who really enjoys interacting with people, amusement parks are going to be a great place for that. Also, if you're new to work camping and maybe even new to RVing, going to an operation like an amusement park that hires more work campers than, say, maybe a mom and pop RV park that might only need like 1 or 2 work campers or work camper couples, going to one of these bigger operations, you're going to be part of a larger work camper community. And that might be a good way to kind of start things out for you, as you're going to be able to interact with a lot of folks who have been doing this for many years. And I don't know about you guys, I know a lot of RVers, and most of them are really, really happy to share their stories and give advice and all kinds of things like that. So I think that's a really good avenue for newbies to the RVing and work camping lifestyle to really help build that community for yourself. Other opportunities that kind of fall under this category, kind of moving back into that activities director position that we talked about, that can be hosting karaoke or something at an RV park. That might be an entertaining, fun thing for you to do. There's also Aramark. They hire work campers for their concession operations at the baseball fields in Arizona, where they do the spring training. So that's kind of cool. There's also racetracks. That's the word I'm thinking, the car racetracks. Many of them have positions where you can go and work different races, and maybe you're like one of the RV parking attendants, things like that. So you'll see that from time to time. And then there's also an IMAX movie theater in West Yellowstone on the west side of the national park. You can go and work for them and help out in the movie theater and be camped right there, right outside of Yellowstone, and enjoy a summer in Yellowstone. Pretty cool. All right, next category up, retail, restaurants, and lodging. So there's a few entities that come to mind when I think about this, but this one's pretty explanatory. And something too I want to mention, like, you know, with workamper.com, we have employers that advertise their opportunities. And of course, you can make a resume and try to connect with employers that way as well. But don't feel like you're limited to just the opportunities that are advertised and the employers that you connect with. If there's a place you want to be in, you know, you can find an RV park to stay at, and then just look locally for opportunities that are available locally. Now, typically work camper employers, they understand the RVer more so. They understand that you guys are usually just looking for something shorter term, like staying for a season, maybe 3 to 6 months, where local businesses that maybe don't know what work campers are, they're going to be looking for someone, hopefully, who's going to stay around for a while. So that might just be something, if you know you're going to be in a place for a longer period of time, then maybe search in the normal local job finding channels for an opportunity. But for shorter term stays, as we know, most work campers, you know, we get into RV to travel and see beautiful places. So the shorter term work camping opportunities are maybe more in the right wheelhouse for you. But as far as retail, restaurants, lodging, Blair Hotels, they're on the east side of Yellowstone National Park. They have a couple operations, and they have a work camper campground that they've built right on site for their work campers. And so you may work in their retail operation. They do have some food service there for their lodging guests. They have a big lodge as well as smaller cabins. So at that type of thing, you're going to be maybe working the front desk at the lodge, taking calls. Retail, obviously, you're going to be doing point of sale, maybe stocking inventory. There may be some kind of behind the scenes positions like doing housekeeping, maintenance as well. So you don't have to necessarily want to be in customer service to do those types of jobs. And that kind of goes with any work camping. Just kind of know yourself. And so if you are someone who likes to interact with people, there's certainly a lot of opportunities for that. But if you are someone who's like, well, that's not really my bag, then there's, opportunities that will, keep you less interacting with guests and customers and things like that. So whatever your personality is, there's likely an opportunity that's going to match those needs and those preferences. Restaurants, that's kind of straightforward. Lodging, there are lots of hotels, and especially I always think about the national parks because I know that's something that a lot of us kind of have as a bucket list with our RV travels. So there are multiple entities that operate within the national parks, and we're going to talk about here in just a minute. There's also Bolin Travel Centers, and they're kind of a retail and a restaurant. Many of you guys maybe have seen them when you're driving through Arizona and New Mexico. They have all those billboards on the side of the interstate for Bolin Travel Centers, and they have multiple ones in that area. And so you live and work right there at the travel center. They've set up RV sites right behind their operations. So you're working in kind of a gas station store environment, but they also have Dairy Queen operations attached to them. So that's where some of the restaurant food service is going to come in. And then thinking about retail too, it's a little different than kind of what we've been talking about, but there is, it's a company, maybe you guys have heard of it, called Amazon. And they have a program called Amazon Camper Force. And we've been working with them now for about 10 years to really grow that program. And so they recruit work campers for some of their fulfillment centers and just for the Christmas rush season. So typically those opportunities are kind of September, October. You could even start as late as December and work till, about the holidays. And that's a short-term, really good money-making opportunity that a lot of work campers like to do. All right. Oh, and one thing too that I wanted to make sure to mention, Alaska. If you guys have ever wanted to go to Alaska, there's a lot of opportunities up there. So if, going to Alaska is not the cheapest thing to do. I know we did it last summer. And so if you go up there to work camp, you can spend the whole summer up there and maybe your RV site is provided. Maybe you're making some money as well. So you can actually get paid to go to Alaska. Pretty cool. So as you guys probably understand, a lot of the locations really rely on tourism. So there's going to be a lot of retail, a lot of lodging operations, et cetera. So lots of great opportunities up there in Alaska to check out. All right, next up, I said we wanted to talk about national parks a little bit more. So there's multiple entities that operate within and kind of around the national parks. And one of them is Delaware North, another is Xanterra. And they usually, they operate the retail stores that are maybe in the visitor centers, the lodging, things like that. Many of the national parks also have what are called associations. And so they're kind of a nonprofit that likely has some books and resources, usually little retail operations within the visitor centers too. And so they're great to work for. Again, these entities, they're going to pay you for every hour worked. And you usually pay for your RV site. It's very, very minimal amount to be in your RV inside a national park all summer, usually all summer. Who wouldn't want to do that? So you could be in the national park and explore it on your days off. These are places people usually only get to visit for a few days, and you guys can be there for months and get paid. Awesome, right? And with that as well, usually the employee campgrounds that they've set up can often accept bigger rigs. Because if you guys have checked it out, oftentimes the guest or tourist campgrounds in the national parks, the site lengths usually limit a lot of big rigs from getting and camping inside the national park. So with these operations, oftentimes you're able to get your RV then and camp inside the national park, which is just super cool. All right, and something neat too about with the national park, you're going to meet all kinds of people because they usually have folks students, international students coming in to work in their operations in the summers. And so you're going to meet people from all over the world working with and coming to the stores and stuff to talk with you. So anyway, super cool, super cool. All right, next up is sales. If that's your jam, this is an opportunity for you. There's a couple entities that make the campground maps that you guys have likely received when you visited an RV park. The ads that exist in those campground maps were sold perhaps by a fellow RVer. So if that's your game, and if that's you want to travel around more and not be so restricted to one place for a longer period of time, those types of operations might be the right avenue for you to go down. There's also Christmas tree lots, or the tents that set up around Christmas time to sell the Christmas trees. There are multiple farms that operate tents in multiple locations. So you can be set up at a tent to sell Christmas trees, and you are provided your hookups and everything usually, and then you make wages or perhaps commissions on sales, things like that. Same goes for pumpkin patches. Kitchen Craft is an entity that sells like pots and pans and things like that, and they travel around to different RV shows and trade shows, set up a booth and do the demonstrations and things like that. They recruit work campers to assist them. So that's another one. So these are potential for good income if that's something that you're looking for. You know, you're going to have to work for it. It is sales position, so your income is based on, you know, your hustle and your flow. But again, flexibility and location, which is something that a lot of people really enjoy. Okay, so some other kind of unique stuff. There's the sugar beet harvest. And this takes place in kind of the central northern part of the country during September and October, typically. And if all things go well, it's about a 2-week job, and you make really great money. And you work at the piling stations, not in the field. So you're at a piling station where the trucks with all the beets come in and they dump all the beets, and you just keep the area clean, guide the trucks, or maybe you work in the sampling station where you're taking samples of the beets that come in, and then it gets tested for sugar content and that kind of fun stuff. So that's a really good short-term money-making opportunity that takes place in multiple states. There's also gate guarding, which is most often in Texas, a little bit in Oklahoma. So you're working for an oil company. So you're stationed at one of their gates, as they call them, which is just some kind of, I don't know exactly if it's a pumping station or exactly what they do, but you're stationed at this gate. Typically, you need to be at least a 2-person team, because someone has to be there 24/7. And so someone pulls up to the gate or the station, and you check them in and check them out. So you're just keeping track of who's coming and going. You're kind of security, on-site eyes, things like that. And that's going to be, you know, a good paying opportunity. But again, you might be in somewhat of a remote location. In Texas in the summer, it might get a little toasty, but again, could be, it's something that a lot of work campers have said they enjoy doing. Also, we have some fun stuff that I've seen come through the pages of Workamper News magazine. One of them is a blueberry farm. Oh, and they do raspberries too. So you can berry pick, be a berry picker. That sounds like a really, you know, one for me, one for them, one for me, one for them. Yeah. So that always sounded like a lot of fun to me. There's a llama farm in Georgia that used to hire work campers. I believe they still do. So you could help work at a llama farm and learn what all that entails. And there's other smaller farms as well that you can go to work for to help with their farming operation, which is cool. Oh, and there's Prairie Berry Winery and Brewery up in the Black Hills of South Dakota. You can assist them in their operation. I always thought that sounded like a lot of fun. And then there's hanging Christmas lights in Knoxville, Tennessee around Christmas time. So you go to work for this entity that's contracted with homeowners, landowners, businesses, and you, along with the team, help put up Christmas lights. And then once the holiday's over, you go and take them all down and get paid for it. So that kind of sounds like fun. So you might be able to take things that are hobbies or things that you enjoy and have that become your work camping job. Like tie that into your work camping job. Like I used to love putting up Christmas lights at Christmas with my dad. And so doing that job sounds like a lot of fun for me. And there are folks too, I know a couple where the husband was really interested in astronomy. And so they went and volunteered at a state park that was like in a remote area, so it was very dark. And so he would take his telescope and set it up at night and show people the stars, just because he really loved that and wanted to share that with other people. At some other visitor centers and things like that, they'll have kind of activities that they have for, you know, the people coming in to do. So you might be able to create like a presentation about local flora and fauna, or maybe you're a watercolor painter. You can do a watercolor painting class. And this can tie in also to, you know, being an activities director and coming up with activities at an RV park or campground. You can, you know, take some of the hobbies and things that you love to do and turn them into activities and share that with other people. So work camping can be, you know, a really valuable, fun thing and personal too to do. Alrighty, and so charitable organizations, you can make a difference. There are multiple operations that fall under this. This runs from like animal shelters that hire work campers. There's also some children's homes that look for work campers to come and you know, be there at the operation to help, you know, haul the kids around, make sure they're fed, things like that. There are religious groups that seek work campers. Sometimes it's after a disaster happens, like the RV Disaster Corps. So they combine groups of RVers that go to places to help with the cleanup, maybe after hurricanes, tornadoes, or natural disasters like that. There are also some where they will go and assist with maybe building a church or refurbishing a church or other religious structure on their property, something like that. So if that's something you're passionate about, you can definitely look into that. And there's a wild horse sanctuary in South Dakota, and this couple went to work for them, and they would go out on the trucks and help fill up the water troughs and make sure that certain horses that needed medicine got their medicine, and you know, get hay out there and stuff. And that was their work camping job in trade for an RV site. They got to help take care of wild horses running free in South Dakota. So there's just some really neat stuff that's out there that can really, you know, kind of fill your soul, as well as help, you know, keep your money in your pocket, so you're not having to pay for your RV site wherever you go. And then, of course, there's operating your own business, as our friends Eric and Tammy Johnson experience as RVers and business owners. You can operate your own business as an RVer and a work camper. So that can range, as you guys know, a huge variety there. But one big thing that a lot of folks are now getting into is being an RV inspector or a mobile RV technician. And there's a big need for that across the country. And so if that kind of sounds like something maybe that you'd be interested in, there's a company called the National RV Training Academy. It's based in Texas. So give them a search and look that up if that's something you'd be interested in. There are also RVers who are mobile DJs, some who play Santa Claus at Christmas time. You know, he's got his costume and the wife plays Mrs. Claus, and they just find local gigs wherever they go to play Santa. You can also sell things, whether it be, you know, kind of a MLM multi-level thing, like essential oils, Tupperware, you know, the smelly, scentsy stuff, cleaning supplies, things like that. Or you're making your own things. We had one work camper who was a gunsmith. He would do super fancy engravings onto guns and sell them at different shows around the country. So work camping can be whatever you want it to be, guys. It's really pretty awesome. All right, so how do you even go about finding these jobs? And so first you need to know where you want to go, what you want to do, and what your needs are, as far as like financial needs and kind of what your preferences are. So what you'll want to do is start just by reviewing what's out there and just kind of immerse yourself in the opportunities, and that'll start helping you narrow down what you think is going to be right for you. So review the help wanted ads that come available in Work Camper News. We have an online hotline system, which is an email that comes to you, as well as our bi-monthly magazine is also full of jobs. So just start reading through the opportunities that are out there, see the types of positions, types of compensation, things like that. Research the area you want to be in. again, if you know you're going to be somewhere, maybe especially for longer term, just start looking around at the different businesses that are there, and just start communicating with them. You can market yourself and have employers coming to you. You can do that via our system. We have a resume you can create and then have in our database. You can also run little "I'm looking for work" ads and have employers contacting you that way. And then just go through, especially at workamper.com. There's probably some really great YouTube videos out there as well, just to learn more about work camping and how to get started and how to go about it the best way. All right, so to help you ensure success, that's where Workamper News comes in. That's where we're passionate about, making sure you guys feel confident in moving forward in this whole work camping thing. And like I said, it can be really, really something that just fills you up and also saves you some money. And so to be successful, just make sure you're having good communication with your employer throughout the process. Getting started, making that first contact, making sure you're asking a lot of questions and they're asking a lot of questions of you to make sure you're a good fit. And when you are at that job, just keep that communication open between you and your employer as you're doing the job, and be flexible. Things change with opportunities. If an employer may need you to pick up some slack here if something happens, etc. So just being flexible will help ensure your success as a work camper. And just having a good attitude and a good spirit about things. As I mentioned before, you don't have to have a lot of experience coming into work camping to be successful. Just having a good attitude, a willingness to learn, be a part of the team, and do what is asked of you is going to go a long way for you. And remember that work camping is a job. These businesses are relying on you to fulfill the commitment and follow through on what you have agreed to, as we hope that business will follow through to what they agreed to for you as well. So just keep in mind this is a job. It's not necessarily as relaxed as the typical RVing experience can be. But just know the benefits of this lifestyle. Again, it's going to earn you more than just money in your pocket. With work camping, Steve always says, Steve is my dad. He's kind of one of the other co-owners of Workamper News, and he hired work campers at Adventureland Amusement Park for years and years before we even got started with Workamper News. But anyway, he always says, when you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you rot. So many of you RVers are folks who are retired now. You've moved into the RV lifestyle in this next chapter of your life. But keep your mind moving, keep your body going. The more new things you do and try, the more that's going to enrich your life, the more that's going to open you up to meeting new people, trying new things that you maybe never thought you would enjoy. So work camping can just be really beneficial just for your life as a whole. And I hope and look forward to seeing you guys become members and joining the Workamper News family. So please check us out at workamper.com or contact us anytime via email or phone. We're happy to help you guys. And we hope you have a super wonderful, awesome rally and RV lifestyle. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.